Okay, so I'm not sure how this is going to turn out, but what I wanted to do is just a little video looking at the 37 pattern webbing setup that was issued to, the British Army and Infantry in 1939 and 1940. So this differed significantly from the set that was issued later, which this is an example here. And the key differences are, firstly, you've got the Mark I universal pouches. So these sit a bit lower on the 37 pattern web belts, and these were later modified to make them a lot higher. This is all original stuff. But these were later modified so that the brace attachment sat lower down, because apparently when troops were sat in motor transport, when they're filled with Brem mags and stuff, would dig into the legs of the soldier and weren't very comfortable. And apparently also when marching they weren't particularly comfortable, so that was modified too. But yeah, this would represent general musketry order. So that is literally just the 37 pattern web belt, the two cross straps, 37 pattern Mark I universal pouches, the entrenching tool on the right hip, and the 1907 bayonet for the SMLE on the left hip at the back. So just a bit about these universal pouches. These were an improvement on the 1908 pattern rifle charger pouches. So these allowed you to carry a range of different types of munitions. The examples here. So these are all original wartime munitions, which are all inert and safe. They're free from explosives. This Mark II, this 2-inch mortar is a post-war one, but it provides us with an idea of what it looked like. And the idea with these pouches was that you can have 2 Brem mags in there, loose ammunition, also ammunition held in bandoliers for the riflemen, at least I think 2 Mills bombs, at least 1 .68 grenade. Is that 68? Yeah, 68 grenade, and apparently a 2-inch mortar, which I don't think that would have quite fit, but apparently so. Some of these early ones as well, I don't know which one it is on this. Some of these early ones also had loops for, this is a really early one. I got this for like £7 on eBay. So I'm very happy with that. But these had loops for ballistite charge or ballistite, ballistite blank 303 round that you could use to launch grenades using the cup discharger, apparently. You could also store, I think, 1 or 2 boys anti-tank rifle magazines in these two. So this created a webbing system that was very much based on like the 1908 pattern, but refined to a certain degree. But it made sure that these pouches and soldiers of the infantry could carry a range of munitions rather than just being restricted to rifle charger clips. Rifle chargers, they're not clips. Clips is an American term, we call them chargers. There was also a skeleton canteen. This is just a standard 37 pattern canteen without the covering on it, but it was a welded design rather than this pressed design. But that's just indicative. Key departure that goes overlooked is the entrenching tool. So the one that was issued originally with the 37 pattern web belt was very similar to, this is not very easy with one hand, it was very similar to the German style entrenching tool, and this was not very popular. These are apparently rare, but I think, I've seen quite a few of these for sale online. They're certainly not as common as the the 2-piece one, which is similar to the First World War one. There's a broad arrow on here somewhere, the maker's stamp. Anyway, that's not important. Anyway, this was never very popular, and apparently a lot of these were lost during the fighting in France and the subsequent evacuations from Dunkirk, Cherbourg, and the various other ports in northern France. So it wasn't just Operation Dynamo, there was Operation Cycle and Aerial as well. So yeah, there were various evacuations, but this was never very popular. I'm not going to comment on whether it was an effective tool or not, because these things weren't meant to be digging trenches with. You were literally meant to use these entrenching tools to dig a shell scrape. They were never meant to dig like a First World War style trench system. They simply were never designed for that. But these were never very popular because when they're in the web pouch, the web holder, they sit above your right hip and they bounce around. So as you're marching along, that's bouncing around above your leg. But this is the kit that would have the troops of the Home Forces would have had, and there are some photos of some of these entrenching tools being issued to troops deployed in the UK on home defence. Yeah, the 1907 bayonet is standard for the SMLE. And yeah, this is just generally indicative of the kit that Home Forces soldiers in 1940 and 41 would have had as standard issue. And like I say, it's very different to what was issued later, with the key differences being this dodgy entrenching tool and the Mark 1 pouches. Oh, there's a bullet in there. I'll find somewhere for that. Yeah, so I think one of the things that would be worth doing is like if more reenactors picked up on this type of stuff to portray the the home forces rather than the home guard and all that rubbish. Seeing a setup like this would be much more common. But yeah, I just thought I'd do a little something a bit different as usual while I work on other stuff. And yeah, I keep on mentioning about this 37 pattern set, and I've never done a close-up of it. But yeah, this is, I say, a relatively unique setup that was used for the first 2 to 3 years of the war and would have been found within the Home Forces units deployed in the UK. Right, catch you later, bye.